The dollar didn't crash on a headline. It slipped while everyone was watching something else. Bond traders noticed first, not because inflation spiked or growth collapsed, but because, well, something felt wrong in the plumbing. Yields were rising when they shouldn't. Gold was climbing without panic. And the currency that underwrites the entire system was quietly losing bids. By the time the subpoenas became public, the market had already voted. Not on policy, on credibility. This wasn't a fight between politicians and a central banker. It was the moment investors realized the rules protecting money itself might be optional now, and once that thought enters the system, it doesn't leave gently. At the center of it all sat Jerome Powell. The chair of the Federal Reserve was suddenly facing the unthinkable, the implicit threat of criminal consequences tied to how monetary policy is set. According to Reuters, Powell warned that criminal pressure over rate decisions would mean monetary policy is no longer driven by evidence or economic conditions, but by intimidation. That sentence moved markets faster than any data release. Once investors heard it, they understood the implication instantly. The Federal Reserve was designed to operate behind a firewall. Its two mandates are narrow, but absolute maximum employment and price stability. To pursue them, it has only a few levers. It raises interest rates to cool inflation and suppress demand. It cuts rates to stimulate borrowing when growth stalls. When those tools are exhausted, it buys bonds outright, monetizing debt to push yields down and force liquidity into the system. Since 2008, this playbook has been used again and again. Markets adapted to it, too. What they never priced in was the possibility that those levers could be seized directly by political power. Donald Trump has been explicit. Over the past several months, he has repeatedly called for lower interest rates, publicly criticizing Powell and signaling that tighter money is unacceptable. According to reporting by the Financial Times, those calls intensified as economic stress mounted and voter pressure increased. The subpoenas didn't land in a vacuum. They landed after months of threats, warnings, and public demands. Investors saw the pattern immediately. When the credibility of a central bank is questioned, markets don't wait for confirmation. They react preemptively. The dollar weakened across the board. Against the Swiss franc, it fell sharply, a move Reuters described as a classic flight toward institutional stability. Gold didn't inch higher. It surged. U.S. bonds didn't rally on expectations of easier policy. They sold off. The 10-year Treasury yield pushed above 4.2%, signaling that investors were demanding a higher premium to hold U.S. debt. That signal is deadly. The Federal Reserve controls short-term rates. It does not control long-term trust. Long-dated yields are set by markets, and markets were now pricing something new: political risk inside the monetary core. As the Wall Street Journal noted in recent coverage, interference with the Fed would not lower borrowing costs. It would raise them because investors would demand compensation for currency erosion and policy instability. The feedback loop is brutal. If Trump forces rates down through pressure or replacement, the dollar weakens further. A weaker dollar erodes the real value of treasuries. Investors respond by demanding higher yields. Higher yields tighten financial conditions, offsetting any rate cuts. The attempt to force relief ends up producing the opposite outcome. This isn't theory. It's how bond markets have behaved repeatedly in countries where central bank independence was compromised. The consequences don't stop at markets. Higher yields bleed directly into the real economy. Mortgage rates rise. Corporate borrowing becomes more expensive. According to Bloomberg's recent labor market coverage, job growth in the United States has already slowed sharply, leaving little buffer. When credit tightens, companies don't hire. They freeze. Then they cut. That fragility was already visible. Payroll growth has weakened dramatically since last year's tariff shock, with monthly job gains hovering at levels that would normally signal recession risk. Unemployment has begun to edge higher. If bond yields continue to climb, the math becomes unforgiving. Businesses struggling with refinancing costs don't expand. Some can't even meet payroll. A move toward 5 or 6% unemployment would not take years. It would take months. The dollar's decline compounds the damage. A falling currency does not rescue the U.S. consumer economy. Imports remain essential, from energy to manufactured goods. As the dollar weakens, prices rise. Inflation pressure returns through the back door, even as growth slows. That is the nightmare scenario central banks are designed to prevent. Now, it's being invited in. The political pressure doesn't end with rates. Trump has also targeted consumer credit directly. In public remarks circulated widely, he demanded a cap on credit card interest rates at 10%, warning that companies would face severe consequences if they failed to comply. Markets reacted instantly. American Express shares fell sharply, reflecting fears that forced repricing would tear through the unsecured lending model. Credit cards are not mortgages. They are unsecured loans issued against risk. High rates exist because default risk is real. Cap those rates arbitrarily, and lenders don't absorb losses, they change behavior. According to Federal Reserve data, U.S. households now carry over $1.2 trillion in credit card debt. The average balance per borrower exceeds $7,000. 1 in 4 carries more than $10,000. These are not prime borrowers with pristine balance sheets. If the reward collapses to 10%, the risk calculus breaks. Lenders retreat. Approval standards tighten to an extreme. Credit becomes binary, approved or denied. Millions of lower-income borrowers lose access overnight. The emergency lifeline disappears. The irony is vicious. A policy framed as consumer protection ends up cutting consumers off entirely. Those borrowers don't vanish. They go elsewhere. Informal lending fills the gap. Illegal lenders step in. Default risk rises outside the regulated system. The financial stress doesn't disappear. It metastasizes. This is how unintended consequences propagate when markets are overridden rather than guided. Zoom out, and the pattern is unmistakable. Rates, bonds, credit cards, currencies. Different arenas, same logic. Political authority is attempting to impose outcomes on systems that respond only to incentives and credibility. Investors understand this instinctively. That's why capital is already moving. Gold tells the story better than any speech. Central banks have been relentless buyers. According to IMF-linked data compiled last year, official sector gold purchases remained strong even as prices surged. In early 2024, when gold traded near $2,000 an ounce, central banks bought aggressively. By November, with prices above $4,200, they bought even more. Bloomberg reported that the pace barely slowed. Price no longer mattered. Insulation did. Major banks saw it coming. Goldman Sachs published forecasts projecting gold near $4,900 by year-end, citing sustained central bank demand and currency risk. JP Morgan went further, projecting prices above $5,000 under scenarios of continued monetary instability. These forecasts were issued before the Justice Department escalated its pressure on the Fed. The rally was already building. The confrontation simply poured accelerant on it. This is the divergence now splitting the system. Short-term rates are expected to fall. Long-term yields are rising. That gap is not sustainable. It reflects a market that no longer believes policy easing will preserve value. It believes easing will destroy it. The strategic cost is enormous. The United States is attempting to reshore supply chains, build energy infrastructure, expand data centers, and compete with China's industrial base. All of it requires cheap, stable financing. According to the Financial Times, many of these projects were modeled on the assumption that U.S. debt remains the world's unquestioned anchor. Once that assumption cracks, the economics change instantly. By the end of the week, the bond market delivered a verdict that no speech could soften. Primary dealers demanded higher yields at Treasury auctions, even as expectations for near-term rate cuts intensified. That divergence told investors something uncomfortable. Confidence was being withdrawn faster than policy could respond. According to Reuters market coverage, the move wasn't driven by inflation data or growth surprises. It was driven by political risk being priced directly into U.S. debt. Jerome Powell's position became increasingly fragile as the Justice Department pressure lingered. Senior central bankers abroad moved quickly. The Associated Press reported that top monetary officials in Europe and Asia privately expressed solidarity with Powell, signaling that global policymakers understood the stakes. This was not about an American renovation project. It was about whether the world's most important central bank could still function without fear. Jamie Dimon added fuel to the fire. The JP Morgan chief executive warned publicly that interfering with the Federal Reserve would push rates higher, not lower, a comment reported by the Wall Street Journal. Markets listened. Dimon's warning wasn't ideological. It was mechanical. If investors believe political actors can override monetary discipline, they demand compensation. That compensation shows up as higher yields, weaker currencies, and tighter credit. The sell-off in financial stocks deepened as that logic spread. American Express wasn't alone. Other lenders slid as investors modeled a future where rate caps, forced repricing, and regulatory pressure compress margins and restrict lending. The result wasn't consumer relief, it was credit contraction. Wall Street analysts began revising earnings forecasts downward, citing rising default risk paired with shrinking access. Meanwhile, foreign exchange desks kept watching the same cross. The dollar versus the Swiss franc became a barometer of institutional trust. Each dip reinforced the message that size alone no longer guarantees safety. Even with the deepest capital markets on Earth, the United States was no longer being treated as immune to political shock. Central banks responded quietly. IMF-linked reserve data showed continued diversification away from dollar-heavy portfolios. Gold inflows persisted despite record prices. The behavior was defensive, not speculative. Reserve managers were not chasing momentum, they were hedging governance risk. Bloomberg noted that these flows were steady, methodical, and largely insensitive to price. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan's forecasts began circulating again on trading desks, no longer as bullish outliers but as baseline scenarios. The irony was impossible to miss. Their projections had been issued before the Justice Department escalated its actions. The market was now racing toward numbers that once sounded extreme. Donald Trump's strategy, aimed at forcing relief through lower rates and visible pressure on institutions, was producing the opposite effect. Financing costs rose. The dollar weakened. Asset prices grew more volatile. The more aggressively control was asserted, the less control the system exhibited. By Friday, the message was embedded across markets. This was not a temporary scare. It was a repricing of rules. Investors were no longer asking whether policy would change. They were asking whether the framework itself still held. And once that question enters the bloodstream of global finance, it doesn't leave quietly. This is not about China. It is not about Russia. It is not about BRICS. The pressure is internal. When investors reassess the rules of the system, they don't wait for elections or court rulings. They reprice risk in real time. Bond auctions clear at higher yields. Currency hedges get more expensive. Capital allocation shifts quietly, relentlessly. The danger is not collapse in a single day. It is erosion that feeds on itself. Each move reinforces the next. A weaker dollar pushes gold higher. Higher yield strain growth. Slower growth increases political pressure. Political pressure further undermines credibility. The loop tightens. Jerome Powell now stands at the fault line. If he is removed, replaced, or neutralized, markets will not see it as a personnel change. They will see it as proof. Proof that monetary independence is conditional. Proof that policy can be coerced. Once that belief takes hold, it does not unwind easily. As trading desks closed this week, the signals were aligned. The dollar was weaker. The 10-year yield was higher. Gold was surging. None of that was accidental. It was a judgment that the guardrails are bending. And when guardrails bend, markets don't slow down. They brace for impact. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.